Welcome everybody, welcome to CHIRLA TV, the voice of the immigrant. In this show we talk about the different aspects of advocating for immigrant rights and how you can get involved. I am your host, Edgar Aguilar.
My name is Diana Lucero, and I'm really excited to have our guest today. Something that I'm really passionate about is civic engagement, because it's time to get ready to change the government and to progress in the country.
Today we're joined by Mariela Jaquez. She is actually the High Desert organizer for CHIRLA, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights. And you've been with CHIRLA for about a year?
Yes. Correct.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Well, welcome to CHIRLA TV.
Thank you.
And well, I guess we're just anxious to know how it is that you got involved with CHIRLA.
Okay, well, like you mentioned, I've only been with CHIRLA for about a year. Mm-hmm. And the reason I decided to join CHIRLA was because after this administration came in, I saw the attacks in our community. And I was sitting there one day and I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of doing nothing with my life. I need to do something that makes a change. So I was like, what do I do? So I called CHIRLA, and to my surprise, they were looking for someone to organize in the High Desert. So ever since then, I've been organizing all the folks in the High Desert, the different age groups, including middle school students, high school students, parents, and even grandparents.
That's awesome work. So we are familiar with the Wise Up and the California Dream Network, and I know they work with high school and college students. Can you speak a little more on the type of work that you do with the older adults that might not identify as college students or high school students?
Well, a lot of the older adults, like myself, weren't really civically engaged, or they weren't engaged in anything per se, right? But they would look at the news station and there was always this bad news, you know, like today Trump did this and tomorrow Trump did this again. So all of a sudden people started having a need to get informed and a need to get active, you know, to act in a way that would help their communities, but also to empower themselves so they know what decisions to make under this administration.
So that's what you do. You bring people together to advocate for immigrant rights. You guys go canvassing. You guys hold meetings.
So right now we have our monthly meeting every fourth Wednesday of the month in Hesperia. But on top of that, right now we're going to start canvassing. We encourage our folks to get civically engaged in order to make a difference. So what we do is go door by door contacting local voters, especially low propensity voters, right? And help them get out the vote.
Mm-hmm. So something I constantly hear you repeat is civically engaged, civically engaged. Can you explain what it is to be somebody that's civically engaged?
So being someone civically engaged pretty much means being involved in our democracy, being involved in the decision-making process of these, well, not only these elections, but elections in general, and anything that's going on that might affect you indirectly or directly.
Would you say a voter is civically engaged?
Yes, a registered voter who actively votes is civically engaged, because then we have people that don't vote at all, but they are eligible to vote.
That's wonderful. And when I was reading your bio, I read that you were the first family member of the first member of your family who voted.
Yes, that is right. My mother was an immigrant from Mexico. She was able to get her green card, but she was never able to get her citizenship. So she couldn't vote. Neither can my dad. Mm-hmm. So I was the first one out there voting. And at first, like I said, I didn't understand the importance of my vote, and I didn't really think it was anything that was going to impact anything. So I got informed, and now I know how important it is to vote, and now this is why I'm doing this work.
So why is it important to vote? Like, does it even
question.
Matter?
Okay, so it does matter, and this is why. The reason why we need to go out and exercise our vote is not only because it's a privilege for us to do it, but it's our job to do it. If you're a U.S. citizen and you can vote, it doesn't mean you're privileged to vote, but it's your job. It's your
civic duty.
Your civic duty. There you go. Your civic duty to go out and vote. So by voting, many times we don't necessarily think this is going to make a difference, but we don't think about the people that are being voted in are going to make decisions that could change our lives and the lives of those in our communities. For example, if we don't go out and vote, someone might get elected that is not necessarily thinking about the good in our communities rather than advancing his or her own agenda, right? So we need to make sure that the people that are elected are people that are looking for our good and the good of our communities.
I'm sure you guys are preparing for the November elections.
Yes.
With that, what is it? How is it that you're reaching out to the community? What are you informing them about? Are there any propositions coming up that you're educating the public about?
Yes, and yes. The answer is yes to everything. So CHIRLA has a civic engagement program which mainly focuses on reaching out to low propensity voters, specifically Latino voters, right? Because we know that our Latino community, sometimes it takes up to 7 times to talk to them in order for them to get out and vote. Like I said, I was the first one in my family. My family never talked about voting, so I never really knew the importance of it. But now that I do know the importance, so at CHIRLA, not only do we canvass and go door by door contacting voters, but we also use the call center to contact voters across California. Like I said, we need to reach them about 7 times in order for them to vote, and this has actually brought good outcomes. People do actually go out to vote, and this is why it's so important for us to do the work we do.
So CHIRLA members get engaged, CHIRLA volunteers come to the call center,
Yes.
And good
Make
old phone
calls.
call to people to go out and vote.
Yes, exactly.
That's wonderful.
So something I constantly hear in the community is, why should I vote? Why does it matter? What would you tell those people that are at home that don't vote themselves because they feel their vote doesn't matter?
Your vote matters. Your vote matters in every single way. And even though sometimes we do vote per se in election in presidential elections, and maybe the person that we voted for did not win, this doesn't mean that your vote doesn't matter. This is the reason why you need to keep voting, because we need to elect officials or local officials. Like, for example, these upcoming elections are federal elections. We get to elect all of Congress, 1/3 of Senate, and local government. This means mayor, city council, sheriff. Now, these are people that are working directly with our communities, and we need to make sure that there's someone that's going to protect our communities rather than attack them. So this is why it is important to vote, even though you think it's not.
So I noticed that you mentioned different types of government. You mentioned federal, state, and your local government. Can you give us examples of what these different governments do for us?
Yes, this is one of the reasons why your vote is so important, and the impact of your vote can have in your community, right? So like at local level, we elect mayor, city council, sheriffs, and these people make major decisions on where our children go to school, the parks and recreations that are in our neighborhoods, street repairs, police, and fire department. So we want to make sure that these people are actually looking for the community's benefit rather than their own, right? At state level, we have governor and legislators. They make decisions based on universities, DMV, disability, healthcare, welfare, and water conservation, which these are important subjects that we really need to take in consideration and make sure that the person that is up there knows what they're talking about or knows what they're doing with our communities. And at federal level, we have president and Congress, right? And we really need to make sure there's someone up there that's in support of all of our communities in general, because they're in charge of foreign policy, homeland security, social security, and most importantly, immigration, which is directly affecting our communities.
So you heard it, folks. No matter where, no matter how, you're directly impacted by your local, state, and federal government. So that's why it's really important to go out and vote.
So with civic engagement, I'm sure you're pushing people to go out and vote, inform everybody about the different propositions that are out there, what they can vote for. Did you bring any propositions that you are familiar with that folks at home should know about? Any advice on that?
Yes, there's one particular proposition. This is Prop 10. And basically what this does, it expands local government authority to enact rent control on residential property, right? So we have Costa-Hawkins in 1995, which was a state law that barred rent caps. So local government couldn't control rent in their areas. So right now what we're trying to do is get this law to pass in order to have more affordable housing for our community.
So I think this is definitely something that everybody at home that doesn't own a home can definitely relate to, because rent is too damn high. So we really need to get actively involved, because we could potentially have rent control. Because I know this topic definitely hits home. I've had to move a couple times because out of nowhere, my landlord just raised the rent another $200. And that's not fair. And I feel like that's something that a lot of folks that live in California could relate to. Is there any advice that you would give people that aren't impacted directly by rent control?
Yes, even if you do own a home and if you're not impacted directly, I strongly suggest you to vote yes on Prop 10, because it might not affect us directly, but just think about when you didn't own a home, or what if one day you don't own a home anymore, you lose your house. You want to be able to have affordable housing, right? So definitely vote yes on Prop 10.
And what about the folks that cannot vote? How can they get engaged?
Oh, well, the folks that can't vote, they can always encourage their family members or relatives, whoever they know that can vote, to vote yes on Prop 10.
Some folks might argue, though, that like this will hurt the construction industry. They won't want to build new buildings because now they can't charge people so much money and they can't profit off of it. What would you tell those people?
Well, I would say they're wrong, especially because if we know that there's more than one family living in one apartment, if rent does go down and if one family lives with another family in a single apartment, you think they're living there just because they want to? Honestly, when I was younger, we had to live like that because we couldn't afford affordable housing. So what we did, we would live with my tias or my tios. So now that wasn't a personal choice. Even though we love them, we all like our own space, right? So having affordable housing would actually increase the demand in construction. Why? Because now people would be able to afford their own apartments, their own homes, etc.
That's a very valid point. And I feel like this would definitely benefit the immigrant community. Can you give us some examples of how it would benefit us?
Yes, our community is one that is directly affected by the lack of rent control. Why? Because like you said, landlord raises the rent $200-$300, you have to move out. So they're constantly moving. They don't have a place to call home, right? So having this rent control would actually have them help them have a stable place to stay.
We talk about the importance of voting, the Proposition 10. So what are the good dates to remember about this election? Like when people registering for voting, the actual election date?
So coming up, we have September 25th, which is National Voter Registration Day. We will be at different campuses registering voters. Campuses, because we know that a lot of the students are not registered voters, right, when they can be. But then we have October 22nd, which is the last day to register. Make sure you go out there October 22nd, register to vote in order to vote November 6th. So those are the most important dates to remember. And please remember, register to vote. If you can't register to vote, register someone else to vote. After doing that, engage with any organization that is doing this type of work to make the change.
So if someone watching today at home, they want to get engaged with and involved with CHIRLA, how can they go about it in the high desert, in downtown LA, everywhere?
They can contact, they can actually go on the website, which is easier. It's www.chirla.org. And they can find their local office, right? Under San Bernardino, you'll find myself and my coworker Mariela. And you guys can contact us. We're doing civic engagement up there. I know LA is doing it. Sacramento's doing it. Porterville is doing it. It's all over California. So just go to the CHIRLA page. And also, if you have any questions in regards to where do you register to vote, if you're already, sometimes people don't know they're registered to vote, so they want to check first. Go to www.chirla.org/vote. And you can find all this information there, or at least pages that would direct you to the website you need to visit.
So you had mentioned that voting is the way to get civically engaged. Are there other forms that people can get civically engaged even if they're not able to vote?
Yes, there is. Like I mentioned before, you can always participate with any organization like CHIRLA that does canvassing, that does contact over the phone. But then again, I know there's a lot of people that work that are like, you know what, I don't have the time to go out and canvas. I don't have the time to go make phone calls. Well, guess what? There's another option. You can always join CHIRLA, become a member, fill out this easy application, and it's only for $25. And this is good for a whole year. And on top of supporting the movement, you're also getting several benefits that are listed here on top of some that are not listed, right? So I'm not from the local LA area, but I know they have really good stuff like Dodgers tickets. So I would go if I was here. But I am a member even though I'm not from the LA area. So don't get discouraged if you don't live here. There's still benefits for everyone.
In the high desert, you guys are having your meetings, you guys are informing the community over there.
Yes, our meetings are monthly. We actually have two, which is one with our core leaders because they're the ones that are the most active, and then we have a membership meeting for everyone new who's coming in. Normally what we do in our meetings is inform them of what's the political climate that's going on, any new laws, any new news that they haven't heard, right? Or maybe something that they heard in the news but they didn't get clarification for. So yeah, if you guys are in the area, High Desert, Hesperia, Victorville, Adelanto, you guys are all welcome to join.
What would you tell those folks that don't speak English and therefore they feel like maybe there isn't a space for them in the movement?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. So like I said, now we're starting canvassing. And what we do, because we do, the majority of our older base is Spanish speaking only. They don't speak English, but then we have the youngsters, right? We have the middle schoolers, the high schoolers, and some college students. So what we do,
they get engaged that young?
Yes, they get engaged that young.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing because I think what happens is that they see their parents or even their older brothers and sisters, and they want to follow the movement. They want to do it themselves too. So we have middle schoolers. I can actually point out one elementary.
Aww.
That was she's in elementary, she's younger, but she is like on top of things, and she's like, I will go with you guys, I will translate, because she doesn't really know a lot about what we're talking about, but she actually translates for the older people. What we do when we go canvassing, we pair them up. We pair up let's say an older person that's Spanish speaking with one of the younger students that are only English speaking or that don't speak Spanish very clearly. And when we knock on the doors, to our surprise, a lot of times we get people that don't speak English. So that's when the older generation can come up and say, hey, this is what we're about, we're CHIRLA, and this is what we're doing. And vice versa, you know, if it's a English speaking only household, then we have the young ones translate.
And CHIRLA is open for the whole community of immigrants, no matter what language you speak, no matter where you come from, you can get engaged with CHIRLA.
Immigrants and non-immigrants too. Remember, we always have allies, and I have to say maybe half of my base is based off of allies and half are immigrants. So it's a pretty good combination. They work together very well, and they're all fighting for the same cause, even though some of them are not directly impacted, but they still have the same vision. They still have the same thoughts.
Well, you heard it, folks. Thank you so much for coming today. And you heard it. If you can't go out and vote, then you can still get engaged. And if you can vote and get engaged, that's even better. So, folks, please go out wherever you see a local CHIRLA office, the closest one to you. They're getting involved somehow. So if you have that free Saturday, free Monday, go out and ask them what you can do to help and make progress in the community. So please check us out at www.chirla.org so that you can get involved and do more than just go out and vote. Thank you. Join us next time.